The room was silent, save for the soft rhythm of Raphael's breathing beside her. He lay peacefully on the bed, one arm gently stretched across the sheets, the corners of his lips relaxed in sleep. But Roselline was wide awake. She sat up slowly, her back slightly hunched, eyes adjusting to the warm glow from the bedside lamp. Her heart was racing, a steady, loud thump that she could feel pressing against her chest. Slowly, she reached for her drawer and pulled out her diary. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages, then stopped on a clean one. With a pen, she carefully wrote, Anthony's lawyer 080, Anthony's number 090. She paused. The ink bled slightly into the paper as her hand rested over the words. A swirl of fear and suspicion clouded her thoughts. Could Raphael really be that kind of man? Could he have made a deal behind her back? Was there something she wasn't seeing? She glanced sideways at him. The man who had walked through her storms with her, who had held her when she cried, who had never raised his voice in anger, who had loved her without condition. No, this wasn't him. This couldn't be him. Her chest rose and fell slowly as her heartbeat began to settle. Raphael is gentle, she whispered to herself. He is calm, steady, good. She stared at the ink on the page again. Then, with a small shake of her head, she closed the diary and tossed it gently to the bedside. It landed with a soft thud. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear, but from love. Fierce, quiet, unwavering love. Someone is trying to poison my peace, she thought. But I won't let him win. Not tonight. She lay back beside her husband and pulled the covers up, her hand resting lightly over Raphael's. This is her life now. This was her peace. And no lie, no voice, no ghost from her past would steal it fro. Not now. Not ever. The sun rose softly on the first full day of Raphael and Roselline's new life as husband and wife. A warm glow bathed the mansion, not just in light, but in laughter. Joy had taken up residence in every corner. For the first time in many years, Raphael's family, once used to quiet mornings and cautious meals, were now surrounded by an abundance that felt surreal. That morning, Sarah and Raphael's younger cousins burst into laughter as they splashed around a glistening swimming pool at the edge of the mansion. The sound of carefree water play and delighted squeals echoed through the air like music. It wasn't just fun, it was healing. They were laughing again, living again, and it was because of her. Roselline stood at the window of the master bedroom, a soft smile playing on her lips. Her silk robe flowed gently as she watched the family outside, a sense of quiet fulfillment warming her chest. Later that morning, the dining table was a vision, laid with dishes that looked like they had come straight from a royal banquet. From grilled sea bass with garlic butter to golden yam croquettes and puff pastry pies, everything glistened. The aroma alone made hearts sing. No one could remember the last time they had eaten so richly, so freely. Roselline had made calls, discreet but thoughtful. She had hired a professional cook, one with experience in high-end cuisine, but a heart for family meals. And not just that, there were 2 new house staff members, a quiet housekeeper with kind eyes and a respectful but firm steward. But Roselline hadn't done it for show. She did it because she wanted them to feel loved, not just accepted, but honored. The excitement didn't stop there. That afternoon, 2 professional fashion stylists arrived at the mansion gate, each carrying racks of exquisite clothes, colorful dresses, elegant caftans, polished suits, shoes still wrapped in tissue paper. Roselline welcomed them in with a smile. "I want the best for my new family," she said, as Sarah's eyes widened in amazement. "You've all sacrificed too much for too long." There was an overwhelming silence in the living room when the clothes were unveiled. Sarah ran her fingers over a velvet dress she'd only seen in magazines. A small gasp escaped her lips. "No one's ever done this kind of thing for us before," she whispered. Roselline held her hand gently. "Then it's about time someone did." As the new chef began preparing lunch, Sarah followed her into the kitchen like a curious little sister. Within minutes, she was checking spices, touching pots, asking questions. "Relax," Roselline chuckled. "We hired her for this." But Sarah turned to her with wide, innocent eyes. "Please, let me oversee the kitchen." Not because I don't trust her, but because we're sisters now. I want to feel useful. Roselline paused, then nodded slowly, her heart softening. All right, but no stress. You're not a maid, you're family. A little later, Raphael came downstairs with a laundry basket in his hands, but Roselline met him halfway, taking it from him. I'll be the one handling this, she said with a proud smile. But we have staff now, Raphael protested softly. I know, she replied, lowering her voice, but this is my husband's shirt, and no one will treat it with more care than me. Raphael blinked, touched beyond words. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, the gesture speaking what words could not. That evening, in a warm and welcoming moment, Roselline led Sarah and the rest of the family into the kitchen. I want you all to meet someone special, she said, gesturing to the chef in Chris White. This is Madame Chica. She's not just our head chef. She's here to make sure this house is always full of flavor, color, and joy. Madame Chica nodded politely, and Sarah gave her a bright smile, already feeling like part of something bigger. The mansion was no longer just a house. It was alive. The walls were breathing laughter, the corridors echoing gratitude, and the kitchen smelled like home. And though this new chapter was only beginning, Roselline stood at the center of it all, building not just a marriage, but a family rooted in love, honor, and healing. The season of celebration soon gave way to vision and purpose. A few weeks after the wedding, Roselline and Raphael sat side by side in a luxurious home office, a white notepad between them, laptops open, their eyes gleaming not with excitement alone, but intention. They had a dream, and it was bigger than the mansion, bigger than the food, bigger than the laughter in the halls. They wanted to build something lasting, something with impact, and so they reached out to one of the top investment management firms in Lagos, an elite company known for guiding startups into legacy corporations. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing it right. They had meetings, long ones, smart ones. Roselline took notes passionately, asking all the right questions. Raphael listened, spoke when needed, and every word carried the weight of someone who had been humbled, but was now ready to lead. Plans were drawn. Names were registered. Structures were mapped out. The vision came to life, brick by brick, dream by dream. They weren't just starting a company. They were starting a new legacy. And when the final paperwork was signed, when everything was in place, Raphael stood at the door of his new office, a towering building in the heart of the city. A silver plaque on the wall bore his name, Managing Director, Raphael O'Illa. He exhaled deeply. This wasn't just a title. It was an opportunity. With the new company rising steadily and joy flowing to the halls of their Lagos mansion, Roselline's heart began to settle into something deeper than comfort. It began to overflow with belonging. One person who stood out quietly but consistently in that season was Sarah. Roselline noticed it. The small things, meaningful things. Every morning, Sarah woke up earlier than anyone else, already tidying, arranging, making sure the house felt like home for everyone. But it wasn't just her hands that were busy, it was her heart. She carried a soft warmth in everything she did. Roselline had never asked for it, but every night, Sarah walked quietly into her room with a tray, a delicate ceramic cup, warm coffee gently steaming, a small piece of ginger biscuit on the side. Roselline always smiled. She always said, "Thank you." But deep down, she felt something more. Loved, cared for, seen. One evening, as Roselline sipped from a familiar cup of comfort, she looked up at Raphael, who had just stepped out of the bathroom, towel in hand. "She's special," Roselline said softly. "Who?" he asked, drying his face. "Sarah," Roselline replied. "She has a servant heart, and not the kind you hire, the kind that's rare." Raphael nodded. "She's always been like that, quiet, loyal." Roselline smiled to herself, tapping her nail against the cup. "I think she should be your personal assistant." At the office, Raphael raised an eyebrow. "She's active," Roselline continued, "organized, smart, and more than anything, she knows how to protect what matters. I want someone around you who carries love, not just skill." Raphael paused for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then she's hired. Roselline leaned back into the pillow, her heart warm. Not from the coffee, but from a deeper satisfaction of building a world where people who once had little now had everything that mattered. And then, as if a switch flicked in her soul, Roselline sat up a little straighter. "I want them all to stay," she said suddenly. Raphael turned to her. "Mama, Baba, Sarah, Deborah, Eric, even Sarah's kids. I want them in this house with us. This isn't just ours anymore. It's theirs too. I want laughter in the halls. I want morning noise. I want family. Always." Raphael walked over, took her hand, and kissed it gently. "That's why I married you," he whispered. And in the golden quiet of that night, beneath the chandelier's soft light and the hush of a peaceful home, Roselline knew this mansion wasn't just full. It was whole. The months passed like a soft breeze through open windows. It had now been nearly a year since Roselline and Raphael became husband and wife. Their home in Lagos, once just walls and wealth, now pulsed with laughter, service, and harmony. The mansion breathed with life. Sarah had fully grown into her role as Raphael's personal assistant, and beyond titles and tasks, she was simply kind, thoughtful, present. Mama Raphael and Baba Raphael had found their rhythm in the quiet parts of the house, often seen reading side by side or praying silently together in the morning light. Deborah and Eric flourished, both starting part-time university classes and lending hands around the home with joy. The children ran in the halls like the place had always belonged to them. Roselline should have been completely at peace. But peace, it seemed, was no longer the absence of trouble. It was the presence of a question. She first noticed it during the rainy season. It wasn't anything dramatic, just subtle things. She would go to bed early and wake up to sunlight and silence. The kind of silence that meant everyone else had already begun their day. The first time it happened, she'd assumed she had just overslept. But then it happened again, and again, and again. Each morning, the house stirred without her. The staff would say softly, "Good morning, madam. Ogadon go out." Sarah would have already left with Raphael for work. Coffee would be waiting. Everything normal. But not her. Roselline had always been a light sleeper, sensitive to movements, whispers, the clink of morning cups. But now, she was sleeping like a stone, unmoved, deep, too deep. Sometimes, she wouldn't even remember falling asleep. It scared her, though she never showed it. Worse still, in those quiet moments with herself, a second fear began to whisper. Why haven't I taken in? It had been 3 years since the wedding, and not once had she missed a period. Not once had she seen 2 lines on a test. Not once had she cradled her belly in hope. She hadn't thought much of it in the early months. They were adjusting, traveling, settling. But now, the silence in her womb had begun to echo in her mind. That evening, while Raphael showered and the house dimmed into quiet, Roselline sat on the bed, hugging a throw pillow to her chest. She was wrapped in a burgundy robe, her hair tied back loosely, eyes far away. Raphael returned, drying his hands, and climbed into bed beside her. He noticed her silence immediately. "Babe," he said softly, touching her arm. "You okay?" She didn't speak for a moment. Then slowly, she turned to face him. Her eyes were glassy but steady. "I want to ask you something," she said. Raphael gave her his full attention. "Have you noticed I sleep too deeply these days?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You and Sarah always leave before I wake up. It's like I can't control it." He blinked, then nodded gently. "I've noticed, but I thought you were just tired." She hesitated, then spoke again. "And it's been 3 years, Raphael. 3. Still no baby. Don't you think we should see a doctor?" There was a long silence between them. Then Raphael reached for her hand and took it in his. "My love," he said, his voice calm and warm. "You've been through so much. Your body is resting. You sleep deeply because your soul is healing. That's not something to worry about." She looked away, but he gently pulled her gaze back. "And as for the baby," he continued, "God's time is never late. I believe with all my heart you will carry our child when the time is right." Roselline's chest swelled with emotion. A tear slipped down her cheek. "You really believe that?" she asked. "With everything in me," he said. She nodded slowly, a fragile smile breaking through. They were still holding hands when the door creaked open. Sarah stepped in, smiling as always, a tray in her hand. "I made your coffee, Ma," she said warmly, placing the cup on the bedside stool. "Thank you, Sarah." Roselline said softly, trying to blink back the weight in her eyes. Raphael gave Sarah a thankful nod, and she left with grace. Within minutes, Roselline picked up the cup, took a few small sips, then leaned back on her pillow. And just like before, her eyes fluttered, her lips parted slightly, and she sank deeper and deeper into sleep. The sun had barely broken through the clouds when Roselline opened her eyes, but this morning felt different. Heavy, her limbs ached with exhaustion, and her breath came out slower than usual. It wasn't the kind of tiredness that came from lack of sleep. It was deeper, like her bones were sinking into the mattress. Her arms lay limp beside her, and when she tried to lift herself, a sharp weakness gripped her lower back and shoulders. She collapsed gently back into the pillows, confused. Why do I feel like this? The bedside clock blinked at 8:12 a.m. normally. She would have been up at 6, doing her morning devotions, writing her journal, checking in on breakfast prep. But now, she couldn't even sit without the world tilting slightly. She tried again to rise, but the weight in her chest was too much. Her heart started to race. With trembling fingers, she reached for her phone on the nightstand and dialed the one number that made sense, Raphael. He picked up almost immediately. "Baby?" Her voice came out softer than she expected. "I don't feel well." There was silence, then the unmistakable sound of a chair scraping against tile. "I'm coming home now." She didn't even try to protest. She just let the phone fall back to bed and close her eyes. Less than 45 minutes later, Raphael burst into the room, still wearing his office trousers, but now with his shirt slightly unbuttoned from a rush. His expression was full of concern. He moved straight to her side. Kneeling, "Rosie, talk to me. What's wrong?" "I don't know," she whispered. "I feel weak, like my body just shut down." Raphael reached for her hand and felt her forehead. No fever, but something wasn't right. "I'm calling a doctor," he said immediately. She tried to protest. "Maybe it's nothing." "I'm not taking that chance," he said, already dialing. By midday, a soft-spoken, elderly doctor arrived at the mansion. He greeted them warmly, asked a few gentle questions, and began checking her pulse and vitals. Raphael stayed close the entire time, barely blinking. After the checkup, the doctor folded his stethoscope back into his bag and smiled kindly. "She's fine," he said. "Her blood pressure is slightly low, but nothing alarming. What she needs, more than anything else, is rest. Deep rest." "But, doctor," Roselline said softly, "I've been sleeping too much already. I sleep long hours and still wake up tired." The doctor nodded with understanding. "Then it's not just your body that's tired. It's your heart, your spirit. You carried too much for too long, Mrs. Ayula. You may not realize it, but this kind of exhaustion is emotional too. Rest is not laziness. It's healing." He scribbled a few prescriptions and handed them to Raphael. "Let her rest fully, and don't let her feel guilty about it." Roselline gave a small, grateful smile. After the doctor left, Raphael stood by the bed, holding the medicine and watching his wife with the tenderness of a man who knew what it meant to lose peace and how much it meant to protect it when it finally came. "You don't have to worry anymore," he said quietly. "I'm going to get you help. A personal maid. Someone who will be by your side day and night. You won't lift a finger unless you want to. Just rest, Rosie. Please." Tears stung her eyes, not from pain, but from love. She had never been this cared for in her life. And though her body still felt heavy, her heart, for the first time in a long time, felt light. The bedroom was quiet, the kind of quiet that holds the weight of unspoken things. The bedside lamp flickered softly, casting warm golden halos across the walls. Outside, the sun was beginning to slide toward the horizon, washing the curtains with a peach glow. Roselline shifted slightly under the duvet, her body still heavy, her limbs slow. Raphael sat beside her, one arm resting lightly on her shoulder, his other hand gently brushing her palm as if to keep her anchored, present, safe. She smiled faintly. "You can go back to work?" He shook his head. "I'm not leaving your side until I'm sure you're okay." There was something in his tone, gentle but resolute. He paused for a moment, as if considering whether to speak, then turned to her. "Rosie," he began. She looked up at him, sensing his thought. "I've been thinking," he said. "Your phone, I want to hold on to it for now, just until you're stronger." Roselline blinked. "Why?" "Because I don't want anyone disturbing your peace," he said softly. "Not messages, not calls, not even me if I'm out. You need to heal, not be pulled in every direction. Just rest." She hesitated, not because she didn't trust him, but because her phone had always been her tiny world, her diary, her space. But then she looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing but love in his eyes. Without a word, she reached for the phone on the side table and placed it gently in his hand. "No one else matters right now," she whispered. "Just us." Raphael's chest tightened. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, tucking the phone into his pocket like it was a sacred promise. Later that afternoon, the quiet was broken by a knock on the bedroom door. Standing beside Raphael was a woman, tall, confident, and elegant in her maturity. Her skin was dark and radiant, her eyes warm but firm. She wore a traditional headscarf and a crisp patterned wrapper with subtle elegance. "Mama Condé," Raphael introduced gently, placing a hand on the woman's shoulder. "This is Roselline, my wife, the woman who means everything to me." Roselline, still propped up in bed, managed a small, grateful smile. "And Roselline," Raphael said, turning to her, "this is Mama Condé. She'll be staying close, helping, watching over you. She's not a servant. She's family." Mama Condé stepped forward with a kind smile and bowed slightly. "I've heard so much about you, Ma," she said, her voice calm and motherly. "Don't worry. From this moment on, I am your shadow. You will not lift a finger." Roselline's lips trembled slightly. No one had ever said such words to her. She blinked back at the sting in her eyes. Raphael turned to Mama Condé one last time, his voice serious now. "Take care of her," he said, "like you would be your own." Mama Condé gave a respectful nod. "I will, sir. I promise." And as the evening settled over the mansion, Roselline's heart, though tired, beat quietly with something new: relief, support, and the safety of being seen without asking. Watch out for the next season. Do you think all is well between Raphael and Roselline? What do you think about the story so far? Come to the comments section to drop your opinions. Kindly subscribe, like, and comment. Thanks for watching.